Wanted to talk a little bit about sensory stuff, physical things, tactile things pertaining to our general experiences. Let's fix the camera a bit. We're always talking about, thoughts, descriptors of certain types of emotional or to describe um, abstract ideas about what it is the self, you know, actually is, and what it is that we undergo as people with SCPD. But one thing I haven't brought up and I haven't really talked about at all is the sensory issues, the more physical nature, the material nature, uh, some of our neurodivergent sort of issues that come with the territory a lot of the time. So, I guess the easiest way to start would be to describe some of my own experiences with such things. Oftentimes, people describe disassociation or, in some cases, derealization. Right? And even something like severe levels of, say, existential anxiety and panic attacks and things of that nature have their own sensory related dilemmas. But I'm not too sure if this is the way it feels for most individuals that undergo such types of events, especially when they're thinking, their cognition's a little different. Often it feels like it's disjointed, right? So the easiest way that I can describe how it feels is oftentimes you feel as if your body, your physical self is not really there. Um, in the case of something like anxiety, when the levels would get extremely high, um, it would feel as if my fingertips and my extremities would kind of go numb. Um, I would feel a sense of like, well, it's like a dreamlike terror, nightmare sort of feeling, similar to like, say, you wake up from a nightmare of some kind in the middle of the night. Those first couple of seconds in which you're trying to figure out what exactly you're grasping at, what's happening, what's real, what isn't. Um, it it feels like that, only somewhat more lucid. Um, so a lot of things that would cause discomfort um, seem to not get heightened, but remain, while things that might cause you grounding of sorts. Ignore that sound that just went off. Grounding of sorts dissipates. It's like it feels as if the ground beneath you just starts kind of turning to mush, and then all you can feel is the terror or the discomfort, and then anything that would kind of keep you leveled starts getting really shaky and difficult to grasp at. Feels like you're falling through uh, a tunnel or a hole of some kind, a cylinder, but the walls are slick and covered in oil. And you're grasping at things around you, but nothing feels like there's a ledge there to hold on to. Nothing feels like there's a place to grab hold, and your fingers just keep slipping and slipping and slipping. That's how I would describe at least my anxious states, especially when very heightened. I used to suffer from a good amount of panic attacks. Um, and as far as like other things like anhedonia, it's difficult to describe kind of the physical symptoms of such a thing, how it affects the sensory. Okay, when I'm in that kind of a state, even things that would cause me anxiety or discomfort, don't. They don't cause anything. They just nothing causes anything at that point. And so physically, the things around you feel like, and the things you see, everything feels like it's made of um like it man, how do I describe this without sounding like so like such a trope like you would see like as a representation in a scene or film or something. Everything feels kind of fuzzy, like um fuzzy and without any kind of response to what you're touching. So, for example, like if when I'm in a really deep state of sort of anhedonia and evolution, something painful wouldn't feel like much. Something sad, well, no, that's feelings again, messing it up. Something painful, like physically painful, wouldn't feel very painful. Something physically pleasurable wouldn't feel pleasurable. Um, Something uncomfortable wouldn't feel like anything. So, um, you know, essentially, I could fall asleep probably in a very uncomfortable position. And that's happened to me. And then wake up, and if the anhedonia sort of had receded, uh, a sore neck or arms or legs or whatever, because I fell asleep in some awkward position or kind of with something underneath me, or I don't know how to describe it. It's just like you don't care about the state of your physical body, like hunger. Um, you don't feel it. Even a headache or something, like if you had a migraine before it kind of set in, like you just don't even like the pain itself becomes dulled. Uh, Everything just becomes really dull, including like touch. It's very difficult to describe. It becomes very everything is just doled out, and it's not just the emotional stuff. It's like sound becomes kind of like muffled almost. Not like literally, but it's just you can't pay attention to it. Touch, sight, like you rather just have your eyes closed. Because it's difficult when you're in that kind of state. It's difficult to concentrate on anything, as nothing could nothing can get your attention really, because everything around you isn't really like the stimuli. I guess it's the best way. The stimuli around you is not getting received and it's not really getting processed. Um, you just feel like a husk for the majority of the time. In my case, like I said, I have anger. It's the only thing that usually remains, and when it does, everything's annoying, including things that are innocuous or should be annoying. Become frustrating, and I'd rather just nothing, no sounds, no sights, no nothing, because the only thing that gets through is frustration. And in my case, I'm guessing without that, because nothing else gets through. In maybe some of your guys' cases, it would be nothing getting through, and so maybe that in itself would be frustrating because you're trying to navigate your day or whatever it is you're supposed to be navigating that day, and nothing feels like anything. Um, so it becomes difficult to concentrate on anything in front of you during those really anhedonic sort of avolition-filled periods. But again, I'm digressing into other realms. I'm trying to stick to the physical, right? Like the tactile. Five senses. So four. Or six. Um, So that's how I would describe it then. When with depression, it's similar, but anhedonia, it's way fuzzier. With when my depression dips significantly, but usually like it'll stay at that point, and then the anhedonia will sort of set in to kind of because it becomes overwhelming, and then the anhedonia kind of kicks in as the failsafe. Um, so I can kind of feel physically when um, it's coming, when it's going to trigger, and then when I'm going to be in a kind of state where I just want to lay down and do nothing. Not even music is helpful sometimes during those days. It can be. It takes it a while. It's probably one of the few things you can kind of get through. But I have to like wear headphones and hear some of the music. Some of it can kind of get through. It can. This is a weird one, but it can kind of pull out some of the things that I can't pull out on my own. Again, fuck. I'm getting going off into the weeds again. I always do that. Okay. Sensory. Okay, so thinking becomes difficult when you're kind of in that weird disassociative state. I don't necessarily have to be, it doesn't, like in my case, it usually has to be triggered by something overwhelming, whether it's stress, whether it's, like almost joy, if that ever happens, really, depression, fear, anytime something just gets too much, that's usually what triggers the kind of deeper anhedonia sort of episodes. It's like I said, it's like a way for my brain, I guess, to protect me from overwhelming shit. But at times you just want to feel it, so that part's hard, and it gets in the way of things. Obviously, like if everything's fuzzy and your thinking's fuzzy, that's another thing. Like the thing you're thinking itself becomes really cloudy, really smoggy. It becomes very difficult to do very simple tasks. It has an effect on your motor skills for sure to a degree. Like like something that you would be able to quickly grasp or take care of or do becomes like a possible task. Speaking is definitely one that becomes more difficult. Though I'm a blabbermouth, so not so much in my case, but I know many others. It seems to be the case. Oh, taste. Mm, I didn't talk about taste. So yeah, it definitely. Some of these negative symptoms with SCPD, when they get kind of bad, definitely fuck with your taste. Food tastes like mush. Everything tastes like flavorless mashed potatoes with no salt. Like seasoning doesn't seem to do what it's supposed to. Sweet foods don't really give you that nice feeling you're supposed to get when you eat something that's sweet or delicious or whatever. Something I would normally love to eat. Just it goes from either nothing and I'm just gotta eat or to completely nauseating or disgusting. And it just doesn't taste right and something's off and so on and so forth. It's similar to if you've ever had a really bad cold, or in the case of some anybody who's had COVID or whatever, that one of those symptoms where like things you can't smell stuff too good or you can't taste stuff too great because it fucks with that some aspects of that. Yeah, it sort of feels similar to that, I would say. Like even like a refreshing soda that I would normally enjoy, it tastes like nothing. It might as well just be carbonated water. It's just nothing tastes good. Um, Trying to think of other things I could probably describe. I'd be curious to what some of you feel, like physically feel, when the negative symptoms are especially bad. That nice cool ball of like depression with stress or whatever, and some anxiety, and then eventually it kind of deep dives into some just episode of flatline anhedonia for some of you. Like, what are your physical symptoms? What does it feel like? Um, the best way I can describe it is just dull. Everything's dull, including touch. Like, you know how some people describe some like EMDA, EMDMA. Is that how I say it? I'm such a tired boomer right now. But it's something like ecstasy, right? They describe vivid sensation, heightened pleasure, and so on. They're like, it's that, but it's like the opposite. Where that is, it's like it feels like you took a drug that does the opposite of all that. Um, and that's definitely a drug nobody would really ever want to take because it feels like shit, to say the least. I mean, I guess it could be beneficial in some regards. Like I said, if I had a really bad headache, I just kind of stopped feeling it because everything shuts down, including pain. Man, I didn't think it would be this difficult to describe this stuff because, like, it's something that's ongoing for me. But finding the words for it it's quite a task uh, for something like this without getting into other departments that I'm trying to stay away from. Not because I don't want to talk about it, but just because it isn't relevant. I'm trying to stay to the senses. So, weird hearing, fuzzy sight, numb appendages, tingliness sometimes. Like the same way, like when your foot falls asleep or your hand falls asleep, but like it stays like that. And it's not as severe, but you can still feel that your fingertips are kind of numb. And you don't really want to move. Also, oddly enough, if you watch, here's one that might be interesting. Some of the stomach stuff, right? Like for me, it feels almost like indigestion whenever something is trying really hard to some kind of stimuli is really intense that would normally cause some kind of effect on me. It just causes uh, like a weird sort of pit sort of feeling in my stomach. Like there's been times where I've watched like movies or things that I normally would like say I go to the movies and I'm feeling like that, or I can sense it's going there, and or if I'm watching a movie or I'm doing something that normally would be enjoyable, and something happens on the screen that would normally make me like either somewhat excited or grossed out or whatever. So some kind of like physical response of some kind, or some kind of chemical response would occur within the brain and body pertaining to the stimuli in front of me. When those sort of states are there, it's like I could feel it feels as if my body's trying to do something. Like it's trying to go, oh, this is supposed to give you some, uh, I guess, dopamine or something. But it doesn't, or it tries to, but it doesn't go anywhere. And then it makes me feel gross, like almost nauseous, because it's trying to pump some kind of fucking chemical, but it's not doing a very good job. And at the same time, there's like these strange sort of mixed feelings because I'm thinking, oh, this thing I'm looking at, I like this thing, but I'm not feeling anything. It's trying to do something, but then my body can't, and so then it's kind of conflicting with the mind, and then it has like a physical effect on your body. It almost feels as if your body's confused by what the fuck this kind of conflict, and then you just get kind of nauseous and uncomfortable, or it's similar to anxiety, but if you can feel it in your stomach, and it doesn't like work all the way up usually to like a panic, or but it's that kind of anxious feeling, but there's no you're sitting there confused considering that you're not doing anything that would cause you any particular type of anxiety if you have certain kind of phobias or issues, but it's just something trying to put you into a heightened state when you can't be in any kind of a heightened state or an aroused state. It kind of fucks with you, and in my case, I feel it in my stomach. I don't know if you guys feel it anywhere else. So yeah, that part's fucked. Um, Another thing a lot of people don't describe too much is for those of you that have dealt with panic attacks in the past, uh, those are weird because sometimes you go into a panic, and then if the hedonia kicks in, it feels as if the panic subsided, but your body feels all fucked up still. So the adrenaline still went through your body. Um, some kind of disconnect is happening, and so your body doesn't feel right, but your mind isn't quite grasping it. So I think oftentimes that's sort of what that kind of disassociative feel is, because you're since you're disconnected from the whatever is actually happening because you kind of shut down, and since you still have the adrenaline going through your body because of the fear response, um, it just feels everything just feels foggy and unreal, uh, because you're kind of like lucid, semi lucid, but still in a state of panic, if that makes any sense. So that part super sucks. And then generally, just any kind of big pump of adrenaline is going to make you feel like shit for the next few hours after that. Panic attacks are exhausting. They're fucking exhausting. You feel like dog shit after them. So there's that too. Lack of sleep then heightens anxiety, which then triggers panic attacks, which then sometimes triggers a shutdown, and then anhedonia and everything else kicks in. And so you get stuck in these weird fucking cycles of like, oh, no, 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 oh, boosh. And then, and then once you recover from that, your just body feels like, oh, fuck. Like, and it feels like a hangover the next day, but you didn't get to drink or do anything. You're remotely enjoyable. You just got to feel like shit the previous day, and then the next day you feel like a different kind of shit, but still shit. And so these kind of cycles tend to repeat oftentimes. Luckily for me, this was mostly in my 20s, so I don't really get these massive episodes of cyclical panic or stuff. I haven't had a panic attack in a few years now, but it doesn't stop the other negative symptoms. I take Prozac, and that's about the only thing that stopped like physically is the actual adrenaline surges from the anxiety. I dealt with a lot of stuff like that. Well, I dealt with the mental aspects philosophically, and then I dealt with the psychological aspects philosophically, and I dealt with the physical aspects chemically. So that kind of tuned out. But the other negative symptoms don't really just go away no matter what's going on. But they are a little easier to manage without panic attacks on top of it. So, to any of you that have or are stuck in that cycle, my recommendation would be to try to do what you can to work on panic attacks as a whole, whether it's a combination of chemical or natural, whatever route you want to take, and maybe some and normal. Like I know a lot of you don't like this shit, but uh, uh, CBD, no CBT, sorry, CBT type therapy. I found that it's only useful or was only useful for me as far as anxiety goes. Everything else, it's but trash cans, at least in my experience. It doesn't really apply much. You can't really one of the terms therapists often like to use is grounding, right? So it's this idea of looking to your immediate surroundings and focus on specific and concretizing on the specific facts or things in front of you in order to keep you grounded. That worked kind of a little bit for me when it came to anxiety, but to kind of stave off the physical symptoms, to keep you getting from that super high level. But it doesn't do anything for you when you can't really perceive much and you start kind of floating away from everything because it's like everything's too far away. Everything you can't concretize what's in front of you if it just feels like fog and mist. Um, these symptoms, these kind of like sensory related symptoms, they have a negative impact on your daily life for sure. Like I don't drive because of it. can't drive. When I had a license, I would drive. A combination of things could happen. Either if I was not in a stressful situation, I would start, if I was calm or normal or whatever, I would still be stuck in situations where I'd start abstracting out thoughts in my head or a song that's playing or things around me, and I would start just losing myself in that, and I would lose track of the road or the driving or any of that, and it would just happen automatically. It's not like it was a conscious effort, and I would have to be consciously trying to not do that, any of that, and have to really, really focus on what's in front of me so that I wouldn't do that. Because driving in itself is very monotonous, and it's just my mind would drift to other directions. But worse yet is if I was, say, in a stressful situation, or I was dealing with high levels of stress or depression or whatever, and then I was driving. If one of those episodes were to occur in which the anhedonia would hit me sort of real hard and I was shut down, I would start feeling like I can't, like this feeling of just like I wouldn't even care if I went through the windshield. I'd probably just fly through it like a drunk person, because just flopping into the air, because it's just because I just that's how it feels, just like a zombie. So that was dangerous too, because like you can't pay attention to the road. You have to be in a somewhat aroused or heightened, even to a middle degree state, to be careful and a defensive driver or whatever on the road. So there would be too many instances and situations in which I could cause myself harm or someone else unintentionally, and that's the last thing I ever want to do, is hurt anybody because of my issues. So I don't drive for that very reason. Um, Anxiety can definitely have an effect on your dailies, but that's I'm getting. But my point is that it's a sensory stuff. The sensory stuff. If your motor skills are a little stunted when you're in a state like this, if your sensory stuff's all fucked up when you're in a state like this, you can't do things like handle heavy machinery during these kind of sort of states, at least safely, or drive very well safely when you're like this. Some people can do it. Hats off to you. I can't. There's some things that I still can do, especially if they're attached to people I care about. I can still kind of push through it and finish tasks that have to do with things that I know mentally will pay off down the line, or I'll regret if I don't do. For that kind of stuff, I can push through the sensory stuff, or just ignore it, just sludge through the mud. Um, but that's it. That's the only thing I can kind of like motivate myself to push through the mud for. Outside of that, yeah, I don't. No, cannot do, does not compute. Anyway, I hope any of this made sense to you. It sure as shit didn't make much sense to me, but whatever. Some people find it useful when I talk about these things, so that's good. In any case, that was that ramble. If you like what I'm talking about, or see me kind of struggle to describe things that are, well, I mean, they're pretty difficult to describe, right? Maybe I just don't have the words for it in particular. I'm sure there's a technical way to describe this, but I don't. I feel like that's not what I'm trying to do. That's not as relatable. But yeah, support me Patreon, support me PayPal, whatever the fuck works for you. If you're broke, like me, then what I would suggest is spread the word with links. Go on boards, mention the channel in places where other Zoids might find it. In other places where it might be interesting. Leave a good review on the server. Is it Discord? Maybe leave a Reddit post talking about how, like, oh, this has been useful to you, whether it's the videos or whether it's the conversations or whether it's the server associated, anything else. Like that kind of stuff really helps. So if you ever get a little burst of energy, go ahead and point it in that direction on occasion, and I'd really appreciate it. Thank you guys. Later on.